New Day, brought to you by Vodafone.
Power to you.
Sasso Insecticide Spray and Coil. Malcolm, ASN Financial Services. And supported by 3FM 92.7 Accra.
This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like.
A very good morning to you, and thanks for joining me. My name is Abna Tebi, and this is New Day Saturday edition. Warm welcome to you, and thanks for joining us once again. We're coming to you live from the studios of TV3 here in Accra. We're also live on 3FM 92.7, also in Accra. We're also live on Connect 97.1 FM in Takrady, all the way in the Western region. And of course, we are connecting with our global audience on the internet at 3news.com. So the countdown is on. It is 24 days to the December 7, 2016 elections. But as we count down to our own elections, we have our eyes on developments around the world. And this week, we saw a major development in the world, a development that has indeed sent shockwaves all around the globe. And indeed, some, I guess myself included, are still or yet to recover from that shock. You know what I'm talking about. Obviously, I'm referring to the outcome of the US presidential elections. We'll get to that in a bit, but let's look at the domestic front and what's happening. Now, on the domestic front, we have had our own share of riveting moments. We seem to have made some strides in terms of our elections timetable. I mean, after all, we finally balloted for positions on the presidential ballot paper. Now, considering all that we have gone through this year, this particular election year coming this far, such a development in terms of the balloting would be considered a major feat, indeed one that is worthy of celebrating. Now, isn't it amazing how much ground we can cover when we have clarity of purpose? Now, this clarity obviously came from the Supreme Court's decision or ruling on Monday, 7th November, which ruling ordered, among other things, the EC to extend the nomination period for the 2016 presidential candidates and give a hearing to all those who were able to meet their nominations filing deadline of 30th September 2016. Now, the EC complied with this order and subsequently declared 7 candidates qualified to contest the 2016 presidential elections, and these are in the order of appearance on the ballot paper. We have the CPP, NDP, NDC, PPP, NPP, PNC, and of course the independent candidate, Mr. Joseph Osei Yeboah. Really, it took us some time to get here, but we are here finally, and at the end of the day, that is what matters. Now, the question is, how do we keep this momentum up and how do we stay on track? So now we get to the international front, and of course, as you know, citizens of the United States of America went to the polls on Tuesday, the 8th of November 2016, after a hard-fought and divisive campaign, and elected Donald J. Trump as the 45th President of the United States of America. Now, this has sent, like I said before, some shockwaves around the world, with an outbreak of protest in several cities across the United States of America. Now, we are asking questions. What does a Trump presidency hold for America itself? What does it hold for the world at large? What does it hold for the African continent? And perhaps even more importantly, what does it hold for Ghana in particular? Of course, then comes in Ododo-Diodio. We know Ododo-Diodio constituency is one of the flashpoints in the country, and it's back in the news for the same reasons it was in the news during previous election years. I'm talking about election-related violence. Now, some supporters of the NDC and the NPP are reported to have launched attacks on each side after separate rallies were held this week in the constituency. Now, we know Ododo-Diodio constituency, like I said before, to be a flashpoint. Indeed, it has been so declared by the Ghana Police Service and indeed security agencies at large, the Electoral Commission itself, and some civil society organizations working in the area of peace and security. So moving into elections 2016 gradually, how do we deal with this issue of flashpoints, looking particularly at the constituency, but also bringing into perspective the larger scale of the issue, which is usually scattered across the length and breadth of the country as we go into elections 2016. So in sum, this morning we shall be looking at the roadmap for elections 2016, a reflection on how far we have come and the outstanding issues. Also, we'll be looking at the Trump victory and what it holds for the world and Ghana in particular. Of course, we are looking at notable flashpoints in the country and how we plan to deal with them as we inch closer and closer to the December 7 elections. This is what we have lined up for the discussions this morning. We'll take a break at this point. When we come back, I will introduce to you the panel and the conversations begin. You're watching and listening to NewDay Saturday edition, coming to you live from the studios of TV3. Also live on 3FM 92.7. We're also live on Connect 97.1 FM in Takoradi. And of course, we're streaming live on the internet at 3news.com. At this point, I'll bring in the panel. And today we have, from my far left, Dr. Ahmed Jinapo. He is a senior lecturer at the University of Education, Winneba. Next is Professor Clement K. Jidonu, and he is the president of the Accra Institute of Technology. Next, we have Mr. Emmanuel Asigri, and he is a member of the NPP communication team. Next is Mr. Kwame Jantwa, vice chairperson of PIAC, and also a senior member of the CPP. Last but not least, we have Mr. Abraham Amaliba, a lawyer and a member of the ruling National Democratic Congress, NDC. Good morning to you, gentlemen, and it's good to have you here.
Good morning. Good morning.
So we'll just move straight on, and we will start off with our roadmap for election 2016. And I would want us to have this conversation basically looking back on how far we have come and also moving forward, what else is outstanding. And this direction is coming against the backdrop of what happened during the week. And the dust seems to have settled. The EC has concluded with balloting. To the best of my knowledge, I don't believe we have any case pending against the EC in court. So indeed, everything seems to have been settled, and we seem to be on track now. So I want us to look at the EC as an institution, and I will start this segment with Mr. Amaliba. The EC as an institution, has it come out of this turbulence? And looking at the many legal suits and everything that we've gone through this year, that's why I'm referring to it as a turbulence. Has it come out better or battered?
Let me say good morning to your viewers and listeners alike. But let me correct what you just said. There is a suit in court filed by some journalists contesting the EC's decision to levy them for this, what do you call it?
Yes,
the accreditation
right,
cards. So
right.
But that will not substantially affect the processes.
Right.
The EC as an institution has over the years served this country well. It has ensured that two political parties, one in opposition, came to power. One that also was in power has also gone to opposition. And so the institution as a whole has served the people of Ghana well. And you know, the EC is more or less like a shining example to other ECs and electoral management bodies all over the African continent. I know when Nigeria were not so sure of their electoral process, they came here to Ghana. Jaga, the Nigerian High Commissioner, the INEC chair indicated that Afarijan assisted him so much to get to where they got to. So based on that, yes. But you see, the EC is an institution that is supposed to act judicially. And that's the point. They are supposed to act judicially in the sense that everything about the EC is regulated by law. So once a while, the EC would have to come up and interpret the rules. But as you know, every decision will lead to a division, even in our homes. When we decide, the father decides that, oh, today we have to eat fufu. Then the mother says we have to eat banku. The children also say. So when the father decides that, no, it's going to be fufu, by all means there will be division. So where there is a decision, there's always a division. It's bound to happen. And so it's not everybody who would be comfortable with the decisions taken by the EC. Like I said, they have to act judicially. And that is the reason why the issue of rules of natural justice were raised in this last issue where people were disqualified. Because one would have thought that issues of natural justice would be limited to the courts. But the imposition on them is that they will have to act judicially.
Because yes,
and
they're an administrative
Yes, it's an administrative body, and as an administrative body, the rules of natural justice also regulate its activities.
Right.
So based on that, you will find people once in a while going to court. And going to court against the EC is not to say that the EC has lost its credibility. No. I do not think that when you go to court against the decision of the EC, it can be interpreted to mean that the EC has lost credibility. No. Sometimes, and in this last application that the EC sent to the Supreme Court, they actually wanted certainty on the law. And I commend them for doing that because, as we speak today, in the next election, Regulation 7 of CI 94, Regulation 9 of CI 94 will never come up as an issue again. It's been settled.
Hopefully.
No, it won't come. No,
Yeah.
the issues have been dealt with. When you go there, it's res judicata. It's already been determined.
But on that, let me ask about, 92, rather, the one talking about the opportunity to be given when the nomination forms are found to have not complied with law and all. There was an issue about the extent to which the EC could raise issues about, quote unquote, alleged criminalities and all of that. Was that settled? Or has that been settled? Because they sought to create a distinction between what they refer to as clerical errors and those that went beyond, if you like, their...
I thought that one, there was a general view that it doesn't lie in the mouth of the EC to pronounce criminality.
But I'm asking, did we have finality from the Supreme Court's decision?
No, the Supreme Court did not touch on that.
Yes, so it's likely it could rear its head?
The Supreme Court did not touch on that. But it is not within the powers of the EC to determine that crime has been committed. What they can do is to report or complain to the appropriate bodies. So for me, if you look at it from that angle, where the EC has proceeded to the Supreme Court for determination of these matters, it brings some finality to some of these things. I do not think that if we go to court, it should be seen necessarily as an evil thing. Going to court is part of the democratic processes. And so nobody should begin to think that because EC has been sent to court, it means that the EC has lost credibility. Because all the three arms of government, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, are supposed to be providing for the needs of this country. The courts are also supposed to be providing for the needs of this country, addressing such problems. And so going to court is not an evil thing.
Very well.
I thought that people who said they are Democrats are the same person who are even accusing the EC.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Maliba. Let me take Prof's thoughts on that. I think I'll do a quick round on this particular issue with all 5 of you. Prof, has the EC come out better or battered?
No, certainly the EC came out much better. We now have clarity on issues. But what surprises me is the fact that we make a lot of much ado about the EC, what it does and what it didn't do, as if the rule books are not there. I think when you look at the other so-called countries where our so-called democracy actually emanated from, all you hear during the election is that political parties are debating issues and then people are ready to vote, and then they vote. You don't hear about EC. Eh? Sometimes you don't know whether they also have
an electoral management body.
Yes, you don't hear about that. It's just an organization which supervises elections. The rules are clear. Politicians talk what they want to talk.
So that's the point. So why does it seem that the rules are not clear?
Oh, no, the rules are clear.
Because you're talking about elsewhere, we don't hear about...
No, yeah, the rules are clear. We claim that everything is democracy. Making noise is all democracy. Jumping up and down is also democracy. It's not. The rules are clear. Probably interpretations, which is what they're seeking the Supreme Court to do. But I think we make a lot of noise about a lot of things we shouldn't. And then we call it that it's the name of democracy. Look at the hula baloo about EC from day one. And the voters register, days, people went to demonstration. One political party said this, the other one. It looks as if the EC sometimes is used by the political parties to score points. A lot of that do happen. When you go back and look at some of the positions taken by some of the political parties, which later on is no more a big deal, it resolved. Some few weeks ago, some few days ago, people think that we will never actually get these presidential names on the ballot. But probably last week, okay? People cast so much uncertainty in our system, not because the rules are not clear, not because the rules are not there. Have they changed the EC rules? They have not changed the rules. The rules governing the EC have not changed. The operational procedures have not changed. The Supreme Court didn't change anything. It just make a pronouncement, an interpretation. So you see the rules are there. And they have always been there for a long time. Nobody have rewritten EC rules. But I think as part of electioneering, after this election is over, we will not hear about EC anymore. Probably some company will be doing some election and then they'll invite it to come and officiate it. So the EC is become part of the whole issue of elections, which should not be. It's just an administrative body backed by legal provisions who is supposed to supervise elections. If we're all doing the right thing, we're not using it as a ways of scoring points, I don't think we will have a lot of these things. Some people, the journalists are not in court. The EC said that I'm going to what? Charge you for what? Accreditation. Is it a big issue that the journalists might take it to court? So you see, we will continue doing this over and over. But luckily, we seem to settle down. I hope nobody will erupt the situation again. It is not the EC. It's the policies, the programs these parties said when they come to power, they are going to governance by. We don't seem to discuss a lot of that most of the time. Now that things have settled down, you see what is happening now? The last few days, we're going to get the promises on the promises, because there's no more fight on the EC issue. So but I think it's quite sad that sometimes when you look at elections, in some part of the world, where's the so-called democracy we said so much about, emanated from, you may even think that they don't actually have an EC. They do have, but you don't hear about them. But here, everything is EC. So I think this must stop. This also shows the immaturity of our so-called democracy. Everybody fight the EC says democracy. I don't think so. It's confusion. So
is that immaturity?
Well, I'm not calling it immaturity in terms of you say the child is not immature. It might be a stage of development, but it's very important for us to be mindful that we're not there yet. You see, we tend to behave that we have a democracy and that we are using the parameters of democracy to fight this case. Sometimes we need to sit back and say, is it democracy? Is it the democracy we are talking about? Or did some people start to create confusion here and there? Yes. Look at the hula baloo about the EC chairwoman herself. When she was appointed, people were even questioning whether she's competent enough. Some people make pronouncement that Afarijan is better than this lady. This lady just show up. You've already made a judgment whether she's better or not better. Those are the issues. And I think in the future, the next round of elections, the issue will still be an issue. But I think we need to sit back, okay? Nobody, after all these things, no single rule, clause, sentence governing what the EC does have been changed.
Very well, thank you, Prof. Mr. Jasper, listening to Prof, my question is this. He seems to suggest that there's been so much hullabaloo about the whole process going back and forth. But I picked from Mr. Malibu also that indeed that whole process has make the EC better in terms of its rules, regulations, to the extent that, yes, there are some aspects of the law that have been settled, so come next election years, we probably wouldn't have to go through this challenge. Do you agree with Prof? What I picked from Prof, which is to suggest that perhaps this whole back and forth has been much ado about nothing?
Good morning. Good morning to our viewers. Abner, I always had confidence in the Electoral Commissioner. When I look at the confidence in which she was articulating the things that need to be done, even her interview on Metro TV, you could see that she was in control of what she was doing. Now, don't forget, she's a lawyer, and she would not want a situation where she would sidestep the rules and regulations that govern elections in this country. And can you imagine if it so happened that she wasn't able to meet the December 7th date? But she has also proven, the Electoral Commission has proven, and she did say, it is not me, the individual. We work as a team at the Electoral Commission. Can you imagine if she wasn't able to meet the December 7th date? Her whole credibility, the fact that President Mahama chose her to be Electoral Commissioner, all that would be thrown, up in the air. But for me, the challenges that we've had with the Electoral Commission has got to do with trust. And the trust emanates from the way the political parties along the years have seen the Electoral Commission. So the question one then asks is that when Afarijan was Electoral Commissioner, was the fact that he had a long stay in the Electoral Commission as the commissioner, did it breed contempt? Did the incumbency of Afarijan and the Electoral Commissioner there breed contempt? Were there things that happened because of the period in which he was there that they overlooked? And now she has come in and she has felt that we should follow the law. Now, look at the phases that the Electoral Commission has been through to get to this point. Even at the last point where PPP went to court and everything was, judged in their favor, she still wanted to use the law. She went to the Supreme Court. And it's her action going to the Supreme Court that has also gotten us to where we are today. She knew exactly what she was doing in terms of the dates and the responsibilities that were on her. She knew that the ballot paper should come out at a certain time. And so far as I'm concerned, she was in control. The one thing that I think right now we should look at, and the Electoral Commission perhaps come 2020 should be able to figure out, is the difference between the period of submission and the submission date. Because
the nomination
forms, there was a huge confusion as to when was that period for them to now come back and be able to work out all that, and then the actual date of submission. I think enough time should be given, and I think going into 2020, as Amaliba said, all these things I hope would be cleared. I'm sure at this moment the Electoral Commission herself, she has been able to show Ghanaians that she's in control. And when she says that she's going to make sure that this election is free and fair, based on where she has brought us now, where the Electoral Commission has brought us now, we'll begin to trust. Political parties should have a little bit of trust now in the Electoral Commission, because all these issues that have emanated have come from political parties. The other question is also, do we now decide to make IPAC do we now decide to put it in the law? So that in situations where there's confusion, IPAC can come in and have a much better discussion with the EC, and the EC will be bound to listen to them and take whatever suggestions come up. If that is going to be the case, then after elections, we should look at all those things and try to put them in place. And hopefully, 2020 would be one of the most problem-free elections we have with the Electoral Commission. As Prof said, in most countries, you don't hear the Electoral Commission. But it's our democracy. It's Ghanaians.
And perhaps the issue of trust, which you raised.
Yes. And Ghanaians are the type of people who two things are uppermost in their minds, money and elections. And when it comes to these two things, everybody wants their point of view to be heard.
Yes, great. I'll come to you, Emmanuel. Your take on this whole thing, EC coming out of this, back and forth, which I describe as turbulence, because indeed it has been a turbulent period, not only for the EC, but all stakeholders.
Thank you very much. Let me say good morning to my flag bearer, who is in the Brown Alpha again, and having a very successful campaign, and also announce that we have our National Youth Rally coming on tomorrow in Mori Central Region. Excuse me, having said that, my take on this issue is quite different from the earlier speakers, especially with the last two. And I don't know why you didn't throw the issue as to whether if the EC has come out better.
No, it's the same. That's what I'm saying. After this turbulent period.
I have a different view altogether with regards to what it is that has, led to where we have gotten to. And I don't think the EC has been able to come out better. And the reasons I say this is this. If you look at what took these issues to court, it was not out of nothing. It started with the disqualification of those various candidates, which led to today going to court to seek redress because per the law, they thought they had been given a raw deal in terms of how the EC had treated them. The first case that emerged victorious on the side of these candidates who were disqualified was the PPP's case. And we also saw the posture of the EC. When the High Court gave judgment in favor of the PPP, the EC decided not to go by the judgment and then went further to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court had to come out and uphold the judgment of the High Court.
Well, not in full.
Well, I think the most important aspect was what was supposed to get these candidates on the ballot. And we all followed through with the aftermath of that judgment, when the various political parties, not one, but almost all the political parties who had the opportunity to speak to the various media houses indicated how they were treated. Beyond that, if you follow through with what the Supreme Court judges indicated, somewhere along the line they talked about this, they asked the EC to respect their judgment as the authority to put issues of that nature in perspective. If you take these issues that have happened, that led to where we've gotten to, I cannot see how anybody would tell me and convince me that the EC emerged better in this regard. This is going to be the 7th election the Electoral Commission of Ghana would be holding in terms of our national election. And for us to have seen this situation take place, I am not saying that even if it happened to be the 20th and there are issues, the Electoral Commission should not raise any issue or issues that needs to be raised. We are all talking about the issue to do with the law. I guess if these candidates and their parties, if they had done anything out of the law, they would have certainly been disqualified. As we speak, it isn't all the candidates who had the opportunity to have gone back to the Electoral Commission that have had their nominations accepted and then put on the ballot. As we speak, APC, I don't know if you have, of course, I don't know the name of the party. Yes, I'm just, and then the other independent, Palu and all those other parties didn't get onto the ballot. So if we think that what happened was something to say it was a victory for the Electoral Commission, I am not also looking at it as a victory for...
But for those who were not able to make it, they were given a hearing pursuant to the Supreme Court.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
They didn't make it.
My contention is not even with that. My issue is to do with where we are making it look as if, the issues that were raised were of no substance. And for that matter, the EC has been better. If EC had gone through this whole thing without an issue, That is where I would use the word better for the Electoral Commission. But again, like I said, it's a human institution. If there were any shortfalls, and then through all these procedures and processes, these shortfalls were looked at, fine. The posture with which the EC took is where I have a problem. And when we say that with regards to Ghana, we are always at, the EC's neck, and we don't hear issues to do with other democracies, especially making examples with the devolved democracies, I beg to differ. The just ended, American election was a serious issue with regards to who was on the register. Unfortunately, they don't have an electoral commission system. Their system is totally different. We heard Donald Trump when he talked about a rigged system, and then it had to force even Republican governors and Republican state secretary of states who are in charge of elections in the United States to speak to the issue, reassuring him that they weren't going to sit there and then allow anything untoward to happen. At the time when he was raising this issue, North Carolina had an issue to do with where minorities, especially the black community, had the situation where their names had been taken off the register, and in some situations, polling stations knocked down and then giving them a disadvantage to get to voting centers. That is a democracy that every country in this world would want to emulate. They had these issues with their just ended elections. So if we have issues as political parties or players in our elections, and people or the participating groups or organizations raise them, I do not think that it is putting the EC in bad light. And for that matter, we make it look as if it was wrong for anybody to raise issues. The issues that were raised were very, very important. But for our courts, we can imagine what would have happened. Even look at the way things were going when this whole thing was happening with regards to after the Supreme Court gave the ruling and the issue to do with PPP. When they said the first time, the error they found was just one error. And at the time when the Supreme Court gave a directive that they should get them on the ballot, it was indicated that they had discovered 105 errors. These things are not, issues that anybody made up for the EC. They put themselves in this regard. Beyond the PPP, that of NDP came up, that of PSC came up. They even shot up to about 303 or 300 something. So for us to look, I will not sit here and want to run the EC down. But if we have issues that have confronted us, let's admit that we have had issues that have confronted us. Talking about this situation, it brings my mind back to when we wanted to get our elections.
So I move on to
when we wanted to have our elections take place
November 7th.
November 7th. I have asked this question on other platforms, that with what we have experienced, was it going to be possible for us to have gone through the elections on the 7th of November if we had taken that date? So for me, if we've gone past these issues and we are getting the road clearer, it is good for us all. But for us to make it look as if raising issues with regards to the EC's working, I disagree completely. I don't know whether if we're going to come back on this subject. Else, I just concluded one other key thing that I want to talk about.
We'll come back. We are still discussing it. But yes, Doc, the same question to you because I need different perspectives on this.
Let me say good morning to cherished viewers and listeners. I must say it's unfortunate. Emmanuel seems to have the same thoughts that I do. But is it a
He's
point?
taking the wind out of his
No,
sail,
not
yeah.
necessarily, but there are other issues that can be looked at. In the sense that, first of all, it's important to understand that in every competitive race where you have two or more people vying for something, the most important and fundamental principle that always needs to be adhered to is that the moderator or whoever it is deemed to be fair and is deemed to be objective. In all of these things that is going on, it boils down to one fundamental principle. Do the players have confidence in the referee? And I mean, where you happen to be at the weaker side, especially when you happen to be in opposition, and it happens everywhere. He made reference to Trump. You seem to be more vocal and question the level playing field. Specific reference to this particular issue that went to court. If you ask me, I think that by the verdict that came up, the Electoral Commission is indicted. Indicted in the sense that, look, the Electoral Commission made a decision that you are not qualified to contest the election. The people took the case to court. They've won. What it means is that the judgment that was made by the Electoral Commission was wrong. Who pays for the costs of these people who went to court? Of course, they hired lawyers, they filed and all those things. Who pays to, who pays to, what do they call it? Who pays these individuals? Beyond that, this issue about later on the faults being escalated, I mean, in some instances, a very huge number. I think it was wrong for the Electoral Commission to have what? To have come out with all these faults. And what is interesting, Abna, is that within this short period of the faults being escalated, then they are given the opportunity to contest. So it goes to reinforce the doubts that people have about the Electoral Commission, even though for me, most of those doubts may not be legitimate, but by the actions, the inactions and stuff like that. But you see, it's also very important for us to understand, in all these court issues, there's one thing that most commentators seem to have sidestepped, which is, at the end of the day, the Electoral Commission is the one that decides who enters and who does not. Even though the Supreme Court...
We hope that decision is made in accordance with law.
I'm coming. No, the law. I mean, the Supreme Court, you go to the Supreme Court says, give them the chance, but at the end of the day, you decide who enters and who does not. You get the point? So, why is it that some entered and some did not? What were the mechanisms for determining who enters and who does not? You understand? So I think there are a whole lot of issues. But in all of this, I think the Electoral Commission has a responsibility to ensure that this election is free and fair, which I believe they will do. But they also must make sure that, look, they try as much as possible to assure the players that, look, it's going to be free and fair, and to give them confidence in what? In whatever they are doing. And that is where I think the commissioner will have to be a little bit circumspect and cautious in her utterances, and especially her media engagements, because they have somebody who is being appointed as the PRO. So why should she be talking plenty? So that's my conclusion.
Very well. Mr. Maliba, I'll come to you here on an issue that, yes, you know, the Supreme Court has, in times past, and not too long ago, we are looking at, for instance, Abu Ramadan case, Supreme Court has restrained itself from getting into the EC's operations because it recognized that the EC is an independent state institution and so wouldn't want to interfere. But interestingly, the Supreme Court's ruling in the ex parte Electoral Commission, which was given on Monday, seems to have literally told the EC what to do to ensure, and I'm quoting, I'm using the words of the justices, to ensure prevalence of justice, equity, and fairness in the election process. And indeed, I will quote further at from the last paragraph on page 12 of the ruling, that the Supreme Court, mindful of the importance that nominations should be concluded according to time schedule fixed by Regulation 42B of CI 94, and the limited time available for the applicant to complete process, the applicant here, the EC, prior to the printing of presidential ballot papers and collation sheets, etc., before December 7, 2016, and while taking judicial notice of the plethora of cases pending in various high courts with similar claims, and primarily to ensure prevalence of justice, equity, and fairness in the election process, we find it prudent to exercise our supervisory jurisdiction under Article 132 of the Constitution to give directives to the applicant on how to proceed to obey the order of the court, and goes ahead to make those directives. Yes, that the applicant extends the nomination period from today, Monday, 7th November 2016. That clearly is, telling the EC what to do. My question is this. The Supreme Court clearly took certain things into consideration. It's talking about the fact that it had its eye on the ball, the fact that we had to meet this December 7 deadline and everything. My question is, couldn't the EC have seen this in a similar light, given the exigencies of the time, and then gone ahead straight to do certain things, as opposed to having these litigations, which indeed in a democracy is good, but it creates certain tensions, which perhaps at the end of the day might be considered perhaps a little bit unnecessary.
You know, 2 weeks ago, I was on this platform and I indicated that with the High Court ruling on PPP, it would have been prudent for the EC to invite the other candidates.
Exactly.
And then to give them the opportunity to clarify, to correct their mistakes. I made that bold statement here. But that is not to say that, and I heard Asigri say that they did not respect the High Court ruling and went to Supreme Court. No, I think that, no, you said that. You said that EC did not respect the High Court ruling, but went to the Supreme Court. Well, so that's, but I understood it to be that it is their rights. We are talking law here. We are not talking morality. Probably what I was doing was talking morality.
But at the end of the day, the Supreme Court brought in those elements, and that's where I'm driving at.
So what I'm saying is that these are legal matters. And the step taken by the EC is not alien to the law. We all know that if you are dissatisfied with a ruling, your next step, you go to the higher court. It's common knowledge, you know. So much as I would have wished that the EC invited those people to come so that they could just amend and then go on like the Supreme Court eventually did. I'm sure they were listening to me too. So even though they didn't do that, but it was also within their rights, the EC, to do what they did.
Obviously, yes, it's within their right. But
I'm just saying, the good thing about what they did is this issue about certainty. High Court rulings cannot be compared to Supreme Court rulings. That's what you should know. I know you know that. I can't be teaching you here. So, in that regard, I think the EC, being a lawyer too, wanted that certainty as a lawyer. But, as you indicated, the Supreme Court was mindful of the dates. Indeed, the EC in its affidavit also informed the EC, the Supreme Court of the exigencies of the time. So all these things were taken into consideration, and that's how come the ruling came so swift. You know, and I don't think that they were giving orders to the EC when they said they should open up the nomination period. No, because the issue that went to court was you didn't give me a hearing. Exactly,
and that was why one of the reasons why the Justice Shea Bafo's decision was found to be perhaps in excess of jurisdiction, which was you should have just ended it at give them a hearing, but not go on to say and allow them to correct, you know, all of those things.
No, when you say hearing, it's about the correction. This hearing is not to come and say, why did you make the mistake?
Giving a hearing wouldn't necessarily mean we are allowing you to correct it. But where you have the order, making those further orders that give them a hearing and allow them to make those corrections, you're telling them what to do. And that was the thing about the excess of jurisdiction.
But when you look at the CI itself, it says that they should be given opportunity to correct.
Which they didn't comply with in the first place.
Exactly. So what the Supreme Court was actually doing was bringing the EC back to its own laws. Because the law says that let them correct. And if they cannot correct within the period, the stipulation period, then they may be disqualified. So the Supreme Court was not ordering them. The Supreme Court would have been ordering them
directives.
Was not if the Supreme, an example of an order would have been, or directive would have been, say that put them on the ballot. That would have been an order telling the EC to sidestep its regulations and then put them on the ballot. That would have been an order. But this one, the Supreme Court was not ordering them. The Supreme Court was simply asking them to do as provided for in the CI 94. And so I think that we should take it as having brought finality to this matter. But the IPAC thing, the IPAC rulings cannot bind. And
but that's why Mr. Janto is saying, should we make it?
No, if we are even making laws to do it, it will be unconstitutional.
Right.
Because the Constitution says that nobody can direct the EC. So if we make IPAC ruling to be binding on, it will be against the Constitution because they are a body. That will be directing. So we can't do that. We can't unless we amend the Constitution, and then we say that.
We do that.
Unless we amend the Constitution. Then, but for now, the way the Constitution is, we cannot.
Mr. Janto wants to come in. Okay. Yes, briefly.
I think this whole thing about, I haven't read the ruling. And even if I read it, maybe because I do not have the legal eyes to. But it's very simple. It's very simple in the sense that We follow this thing. We know where it started from. At a point in time, most of the candidates were disqualified. Only 4 were deemed qualified, right? All of a sudden, somebody takes the case to court. The case is in court. There's a ruling given. The Electoral Commission did not go to the Supreme Court to validate the ruling by the High Court. They went there with the aim of what? Overturning it. Absolutely. Very simple.
Well, that's speculation. You can't be
what
sure
is
about
appeal?
that.
When we say appeal,
No.
when you
They
appeal
sought,
something.
that wasn't an appeal.
What did they do?
They sought the supervisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to...
Abna, that is why I started by indicating I'm not a lawyer. But the fact of the matter is that by the body language, the utterances and everything of the Electoral Commission, what they sought to do was to get an alternative an alternative thing to it.
Right.
That's it. With regards to this Supreme Court issue, the Supreme Court was very clear, and by the actions of the East, he said that, look, extend the nomination to what? Tuesday. Extend it to Tuesday. And give those people the opportunity to what? To amend. That was the word it used.
Right.
No, amend.
The errors.
And by that, these people have gotten themselves on the ballot box. What does it mean? The Supreme Court told them what to do. They told them what to do in terms of what? Amend. And that is why I indicated in my first submission that even though the Supreme Court told them to give them the opportunity to what? To amend and extend the date, the Electoral Commission still had what? The overall power of deciding who goes in and who does not.
But you see, to add to what... No, Mr. Maliba, just a minute. To add to what Dr. Jinapo is saying, indeed, the referral or the desire for the EC to invoke the supervisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court was really to have the High Court's decision quashed. Now, this is it. That let me read from the judgment here. That the application before the court invokes the supervisory jurisdiction of the court against the High Court Commercial Division, Accra, praying this court for an order of certiorari to bring up into this court for purposes of being quashed the ruling of this. So, indeed, that is what it is. And no, but that was the essence of it. Great, but you carry on.
High Court has given a ruling quashing the EC's
decision to disqualify.
And this is what the EC is saying. I've heard you, but I think there's a superior body. Let me know what that body will say. No. I've heard you. You say I should. Yes.
No, please,
no, you don't understand. You don't understand.
Just a minute.
You don't understand.
No. Wait, just a minute.
What are you talking about? Am I saying that I'm not speaking? I'm saying that what lawyers take into consideration, or what a litigant will take into consideration, is that there are hierarchy of courts. There are hierarchy of courts.
But if that were the case, why didn't you go to the Court of Appeal, for instance?
No,
to seek an appeal, so that it wasn't a supervisory jurisdiction, but then an appellate one with the Court of Appeal.
You know, you've been working, you walk on the corridors of the court. It will take a long process. You know, it will take a long process. They have to settle records.
No, but given the exigencies of the time, do you think that long process would have been adhered to?
Let me tell you something.
Wouldn't it have been fast-tracked?
Even with the shortage of time, there are certain things you cannot sidestep. So, yes, there are certain things you cannot sidestep. So, they took into consideration appeal would drag the matter. Supervisory jurisdiction is quicker. And by using that, we've seen the end of this matter. So, I do not think that the EC erred by going to the Supreme Court, wanting to validate what the High Court has done. There's nothing wrong.
Very well. I think here we are interrogating the objective of that, which is fine. But let me just a minute. Mr. Jantua is coming in. Yes.
The issue we are bringing.
No. Emmanuel, just a minute. Let Mr.
asking us as panelists here. If the Supreme,
hold your horses. I will come to you. But Mr. Jantua has been wanting to say something for the longest time. That's your opinion. That's fine. We respect that.
You're probably now saying it.
No, Mr. Maliba. No, Emmanuel. It's okay. No, you've had your piece. That's fine, Mr. Maliba.
I wasn't the first person who started this discussion.
Yeah, you did.
And I said that the EC has come out better. Because
you had your reasons. Yes, that's what. Fine. Thank you, Mr. Jantua.
Abna, let's not forget that any step of the EC is guided by law.
Sure.
Absolutely. Whatever they do is guided by law. And if they realize that candidates' nomination papers was contrary to the law, they have the right to act. And they acted. I don't see anything wrong with the Electoral Commission wanting to go to the Supreme Court to quash an appeal court's decision.
Sure, but we just need to get the facts right. Was that it or was it not? Because I think that's what
for the past exactly. So we just need to get the facts right. We can only go according to what they say the facts are.
Exactly, and which is what I read.
Because we were not there when they were making that decision.
But we have the benefit of the judgment to read it. No, please let him land. Yes.
We were not there when they were taking that decision. They have the right, like any political party has the right, to go to court. And they took that right to go to the Supreme Court. And another reason why they went to the Supreme Court was to be able to clarify the issues, because at the time they went to the Supreme Court, there were quite a lot of court cases from the political parties in court on this issue. And what has happened? It has clarified it. Now, I want to take on a point Emmanuel made. I don't think all of us around this table were given the impression that the issues that the political parties took to court were non-essential. I don't think we're giving that idea, that it wasn't important. That, because some of us feel that the EC has come out tops in terms of being able to meet the 7th December date, those issues were null and void. No, it has tested the law. So far as I'm concerned, it has tested the law. It has tested the jurisdiction of the High Court and the Supreme Court. And for us, it's a reference point for future elections. And so let us take this wholeheartedly and move forward. The issues have been dealt with. We are now confident that 7th December will happen. Now, the question, which I think Emmanuel also brought up, if it so happened that it was 7th November, would the EC have taken the position they took with regards to what has happened so far? That we don't know.
That's a bit speculative, yes, because we really don't, yes.
We don't know.
Right.
And so far as I can see, this situation has now come to an end. Let's move forward.
Very well. We'll take a break at this point. When we come back, Emmanuel and the other panelists will have a second bite on this issue. Yes, we'll have a second bite on this issue. You're watching and listening to NewDay Saturday edition live on TV3, 3FM, Connect FM, and Takrade, and also streaming live on the internet at 3news.com. I'll come back to the panel for their take, but I'll take some messages from viewers and listeners. Aram in Adenta News Site says, Abna, good morning to you and your panelists. I believe the court cases that the EC faced will be better for our democracy. I see our next CI for election to be more detailed. Ghana is moving forward in its democracy. Another one saying, EC itself created the litigation for not applying or by not applying the rules governing the elections. Aliyu Mahama Busa says the EC is just throwing its credibility away by allowing these smaller parties to go to court and creating anxiety and panic in people when this matter could have been solved amicably without going to court. Kaketo from Teshi says, for purposes of I'm not sure what that word is, but it says for purposes of some type of water provided for the people of Teshi, asphaltic roads, construction of drains, lobbied by Honorable Senna and Her Excellency John Dramani Mahama and Senna Montwaso. Okay, so this is an endorsement of the NDC. Karim from Yamfo says, what is the NPP and Nanado always saying? Yamfo, okay, thank you for that. What is the NPP and Nanado always saying that Volta, they need 30% from Volta? The crowd they saw, the Voltaireans are laughing. No, your text unfortunately is not clear for me. I can't read it totally. Oliver Bamba in Salaga says, the rank and file of the NDC incessantly associated Donald Trump to Nanado and the NPP. By this logic, victory awaits Nanado and the NPP on December 7th, inshallah. Another one is saying, Ghanaians must learn a lesson from the U.S. election by voting wisely to avert what happened in the U.S. protest and avoid voting NPP and avoid protests come December. Alaji, and this is Alaji Said in Adenta. Okay. Another one is saying, this is Mohammed in Kumbungu in the northern region. He says, it's rather unfortunate the EC didn't do the assignment very well. Barely 3 weeks to the elections and we wouldn't want these happenings anymore. They should have listened to the disqualified candidates before passing out their unjustifiable decision. The day shouldn't be interfered. We can't wait any longer, not even a single day. 7th December is even too far not to talk of postponing it. How I wish the days were like a seasonal movie. And this is, okay, you didn't add your name. Lincoln in Akwetiman says, history tells us that Nanado's father was the president of his country. Why Nanado is not campaigning on his father's achievement and rather campaigning on the achievement of Mr. Kufuor, who became a president recently? It means Nanado's father has no achievement that his son can build on. This is somebody who's asking. The EC chairperson must take caution of her position because Ghana belongs to us Ghanaians, but not her property. And this is from Douglas, from Ahafwano South. From Evans, he says the EC is a credible institution that has been commended by other countries, and hence Ghanaians should allow the institution to work without any duress. Another one is saying, today Mr. Maliba sees EC going to court as a problem, but Nanado's going to court in 2012 was, as not a problem, sorry, but Nanado's going to court in 2012 was a problem. It's clear for everybody to see the hypocrisy of NDC. I'll take the last message and then we carry on. This is from Nicholas Murphy. He says, good morning, Ms. Abna. I believe that EC going to court to seek redress just gives us Ghanaians the opportunity to learn something, especially the first-time voters who are listening and watching what is going on for the first time. There are a lot of the first-time voters here who considered all what is happening as learning. Last one, Kimani from Accra, is saying, Prof's view that no rule or law governing the elections has been changed is not entirely correct. Is Prof aware of the recent Supreme Court's ruling in the case of one Mr. Tufor versus the EC that led to the alteration of aspects of the CI-94? This is Kimani from Accra. We'll press the brakes on the messages now and come back to the panel. When we are done here, I'll read some more messages, so please keep sending your messages through. We will be carrying on. I'll go to Prof and then I'll come to you, Emmanuel, but Prof, the discussion so far, we have touched on the directives given to the EC by the Supreme Court and all. But I don't know if it was Doc who raised the issue about the later increases in the errors that were found on the various nomination forms that were questioned. What do you make of that?
Straightforward. You see, unfortunately, our systems, our administrative system, whether it's a political party system, civil service, private sector, always have this element of inefficiency. We do have. Let's not deny that. Due diligence is not something our stock in trade. Okay? That is where you have a political parties, all they got to do is fill forms. They have they are spending millions and millions of Ghana cedis.
But perhaps, Prof, sorry to cut you, but what I'm looking at is where you had a situation where on the 10th of October, the EC announced some disqualifications based on certain stated reasons.
Very good.
So for a certain political party, they had 2 errors that were identified and they needed to have, they weren't even at the time given the opportunity, but they said, because of these reasons, you have been disqualified.
Very good.
Then there's a ruling by the court. Then the EC turns around and says, well, we have this
there are
number.
other small ones.
From 2 to 105, from 4 to 303, and that's what I'm asking.
Yes, that's the point. That's the point I'm making. It is possible that when the EC itself is checking, they also make an error, not to find errors. That's part of the inefficiency I'm talking about.
They make an error not to find errors.
Of course, yes.
Yes.
We don't pay attention to details. Okay? On critical things, we don't know it. Let's accept that. You go to our ministries, people do things half-half. You go to our private sector, people do things half-half. That's where we are, as most of the African countries. Let's accept that point first, that certainly the EC is a Ghanaian institution. You don't expect it to be that efficient. There are elements. No, let me make a point. Don't jump.
Anyways, that's your opinion. You're entitled to it.
Yes.
Please allow him, yes.
Let me make my point.
Yes, sure, carry on.
If in case they are efficient, how come suddenly they discover 105 errors if they are efficient? If it's true that they got 1 or 2 errors before, and on the basis of that, they disqualify these people, then suddenly overnight, That cannot be an efficient organization.
They might have had it before.
No, the point I'm making is this. This is the point I'm making.
But
Let
yes.
me land. Let me land. I know my argument.
Sure, please carry on.
You can't make my argument for me. The point I'm making is that if it's true, it could be that the EC actually spotted those errors, but they were not big deals. The main issue that they disqualified them are the big errors. There were other small errors. Credit card errors here, spelling here, signature here. They might have found those 105, but they were not the serious one on which they disqualified them.
But why bring it up
But
later then?
Yes,
if
later,
it had
yes,
nothing,
yes,
if it
yes,
had no relevance.
Yes. This is the reason. I'm not saying that's what happened. It could mean that they didn't spot the 105 before because of inefficiency. It could also mean that they spotted them, but they are not big deals to disqualify them. But there's bigger thing to disqualify them on 1, 2. I'm disqualified on this. But I'm not going to talk to you about the small ones. But now that you are given a chance to make a correction for the big ones, why not also correct the small ones? Those two possibilities are damn correct. Maybe they didn't spot it before because of inefficiency. If they say they're inefficient and they didn't spot it, then it's a contradiction. Okay? But we could argue that, well, they might have spotted it and they didn't think that it's a big deal to disqualify them because there are bigger ones on which they disqualify them. That's why I say, on the basis of this and that, I'm disqualifying you. Now that you are given a chance to correct the big ones, and also, by the way, you know there are smaller ones, correct them. We are home and dry.
Okay.
That will be my interpretation of what actually happened.
Very well. I mean, I wanted this conversation to be more of a forward-looking thing, but of course we are also learning from the past, which is good.
Forward.
Yes, because this issue about the later increments in errors found on nomination forms raises issues about the decision to disqualify in the first place. Then, because pursuant to or the CI-94 mandates that when you are disqualifying or coming out with such statements, yes, you list those grounds. So then you list 2, and then you come and later on say it's actually 105, you list 4, you later on come and say it's 303. So then the question is, did you come to that decision hurriedly, or what exactly happened? Raising issues about arbitrariness, in my opinion, really. Emmanuel, I want you to take that.
Well, I mean, you realize that when I made my submission, I brought it up. You know, and that is one thing that baffled me when the issue with regards to, you know, the Supreme Court, you know, upholding the verdict of the High Court and asking them to lead them through to sort this whole thing out. Like I indicated in that submission, we heard from the various political parties. And I don't think that, I mean, till date, the EC, even though we've gone past that, did not come out to say that what these political parties had put out there, because they spoke on various media platforms, was not true. We heard from the political parties who were involved or affected, telling us that when these things were raised, all the EC did was that from the one error which metaphors to 105 with regards to PPP, they were asked to come in and sign a document indicating that they had been given a hearing, and their lawyers declined. The same thing happened to PNC, the same thing with NDP. All these things are what it is that we are questioning with regards to the posture of the EC when Ahmed brought that up. And moving beyond this level, we've seen other issues not directly related to this court matter coming up, which could also put our election in jeopardy. The issue where the commissioner has come out to talk about, you what?
No, wait a minute, Mr. Maliba.
I didn't know when
I think he has the power of clairvoyance or something.
You said it.
Anyway,
I am wondering.
Please carry on.
This behavior of
Wow.
No. You know, this
Off the camera.
of the camera. No, we are sitting with 3 cameras and they are telling us that. Listen, this behavior of dry bones mentioned and old lady Shiva, Amaliba, stop it. Did you hear me? The dry bones mentioned and old lady Shiva, please stop it.
Okay, Emmanuel, carry on.
The point that I'm bringing up is about what we've heard the EC, the commissioner of the EC, say not once, but has repeated. She said it out of the jurisdiction of Ghana, and she's been home and has repeated that point. For me, Kwame mentioned one fundamental issue when he said that the EC has laws governing it, and he believes that they will go by the law. Thankfully, we have a commissioner who is a lawyer. I have no knowledge about what the nitty-gritties of law is, but the one that I believe I can make a case out of is what I'm standing on. The CI 94, or if you take previous CIs we've had that has led us into every elections, there is nowhere, or even the establishment, I mean the act that establishes the Electoral Commission, there is nowhere that there is a line, a caveat, or a sentence giving any commissioner, or the commissioner herself, or himself, so to speak, any right to talk about recount when you find results that close. You are not participating in the elections. It is so clear as to who has the powers or the ability to ask for. And the rules...
But we know the EC has since that statement come to
is that topic on the
clarify. It's not, but he's raising...
Wait
a minute. He's raising issues about decisions of the EC, which are relevant here. Because indeed, I have that table as a theme for discussion. So we will go there. I am the EC. I have ruled. I have made my decision. Emmanuel, carry on.
Yeah, so with... When she said it the first time, you see, some of the things were happening behind the scenes. You can't put it out in public domain. But when she said it the first time, I think it might have come like a slip to her when her attention was drawn to the fact that there is a law governing this particular election that we are going, which is the CI 94. And we thought that was over. She came home, held this editors forum, and repeated this call. And some of us are wondering what is the motivation behind this call, this thing that Madam Charlotte Osei is thinking that when an election is getting that close, and speaking at home, she talked about when you have it going for about 1,000, you have it going for about, giving numbers, it gives her no right to talk about recount in this regard. It gives her no right at all. So for me, I'm wondering what exactly the situation is that is giving her that motivation to think that she should start having that conception. She should conceive that thing in her mind that she will call for recount, even if it is close by two votes. We've had situations where members of parliament today have gone to parliament based on 3 votes difference. We've had a situation where we've gone for an election where after a runoff, the Electoral Commission could not pronounce a winner and had to go to one constituency to hold election which was suspended in that constituency to make up for that difference. And when that election was declared, the difference between the winner and the loser was less than 40,000. So if Madam Charlotte Osei is giving us all these things, some of us are worried because we have talked about the posture of the Electoral Commission, and it is not in regards to this disqualification of these candidates, but over the period, issues that have been raised by the players in our electoral issue with regards to our election. Absolutely. This Electoral Commission has not given out, the indication that they are in to do things in a manner that some of us will sit and say we are moving on a smooth, direction. So for me, I am so worried about it, and I think that we need to let Madam Charlotte Osei know that she has no place in this, and she should not continue to make this statement as if she's disregarding the rules and then making it look as if she's an authority on
and this particular statement is in reference to the recount.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, so we get it in context. Thank you. I need to move on to
I think
Doc now.
There's a common maxim that says that you cry or you mourn more than the bereaved or whatever it is. And I say that you don't cry more than the bereaved. And I want to listen to my brother Emmanuel. I said, if it had happened that MPP was disqualified, what would have happened? Because it will be very interesting, because the way you are so passionate and you speak to this issue. But you see, the point is this. Generally, for me, on this whole issue of the courts and the posture of the Electoral Commission. And when I say the Electoral Commission, I use the Electoral Commission as a body, not the Electoral Commissioner alone. That's the chairwoman. The posture of the Electoral Commission vis-a-vis what has happened around this whole disqualification and qualification and all those things has been a total fiasco. In the sense that, it's interesting to know that even the PPP, for instance, got to know that they were disqualified in the media. From what they are saying, they said they heard about their disqualification in the media, which I find quite unfortunate. And if you look at, that's why I made the point that, look, the Supreme Court asked the Electoral Commission to give the applicants the opportunity to amend their forms. But at the end of the day, the final decision as to who enters the race rests with the Electoral Commission. Yeah. So if the Electoral Commission had any problems with all the candidates or any of the candidates, I think they could have gone around this issue in a better way. That said, I'm still very confident about a successful December 7th elections. And I will ask those who are skeptical about the ability of the Electoral Commission or suspicious of their actions and inactions relative to what is going to happen in December 7th to be a little bit careful, because we've seen it. Trump said the election was rigged. True or false? Trump. He said the election was rigged even before they went. Today, did you hear of him? He even refused to concede. So you see, what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, be careful what you say. Be careful what you say, and don't overstretch the system so that when it tends to benefit you, then you find yourself in a corner that you cannot more or less enjoy about it. I think we should give the Electoral Commission the opportunity. The Electoral Commission also has a responsibility. I've heard a lot of people say that, look, finally we've gotten there. We haven't gotten there. We haven't even started. Election happens on election day. Isn't that the case? We've had instances in this country in 2012 where we had to postpone election to the next day. If you look at the polarization of this country, the suspicion.
Extend, not postpone.
No, I'm coming to extend it. We extended it the next day. Do you think it will happen in 2016? It can happen. They won't agree. I mean, in 2016, there's nobody who is going to agree that, look, we should extend election the next day. So I think we haven't even started. We haven't started the process at all. The election is going to happen, or we are going to test whether the Electoral Commission is capable of running the election on the day of election, the day that from 7 o'clock to 5 p.m. That is when we'll be able to determine.
Making reference to old adages, is that I got to say if you're not part, so we've started, we need to see some indications, and clearly, like this week, we seem to be making some strides. So hopefully, we will keep that momentum and carry on.
A substantive question until...
very well. You make that and then I bring in something.
To another time.
No, it was... You see, I'll be going to that.
No, you're
going to carry on.
So that's why we are. The substantive issue is why is it that there are now 100 and some 300 mistakes.
Errors detected.
Now. In my view, it clearly shows to the EC itself that their nomination period, if there was at all, is short. Because now that they went to court, and whilst they were in court, they had time to look at the papers again, they now saw that the numbers are more than 3, 2, but 100 and something. So it tells they themselves that they need to give enough time for the nomination period.
But you see, inherent in that statement there, Mr. Maliba, is the thing about, again, going to the crux of the issue, which has to do with the decision to disqualify. Because just as much as they could have overlooked those 105, 303 errors, like you're saying, perhaps the so-called errors that were detected maybe were not even errors. Do you get what I mean? So that when you are...
We do not know whether they overlooked it.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Let's be clear about that.
Picking up from Mr. Amaliba's argument.
My submission is this, that because they now had enough time, because matters were in court.
But they had already disqualified.
Yes.
But the disqualification had already happened.
Yes, and I'm saying that when they were now still in court, they took opportunity and saw those new errors.
But that's why I don't get. Why would you go back to the forms when you have done your job and then declared categorically?
Why would you go back to the forms?
You've declared categorically.
Why would you go back to the forms? The forms are already in their custody.
But you made a decision based on you having finished reviewing it.
And I'm saying that if that has happened, if they have seen new errors amounting to 100 and something, they must have gone back to the forms.
Which raises issue about what
they must have
said
gone back
about
to the
due
forms.
diligence, inefficiency.
How could they have seen new errors amounting to 100? They must have gone back to the forms.
Which is a question for all
of us. So that's what I'm saying, that for them, for me, that's my submission. It tells they themselves that the nomination period itself needs to be enough, because the 2 days given is not even enough for 2 weeks. No, the submission date rather, 29th and 30th. because when you submit on the 30th, you couldn't come back to correct again. Those days are too short. So they themselves should also extend their nomination period so that they can also do due diligence on the forms before they even disqualify people.
Very well. Mr. Chancellor, yes, you want to come in?
If I make a point.
Sure.
Look, all these discussions that have gone on, all these utterances that have gone on, is good. Why do I say it's good? It's put the Electoral Commission on its toes. It's put the Electoral Commission on its toes. It's put the Electoral Commission on its toes that they should realize that they are not an island upon themselves. Not an island upon themselves. It's their actions have got reactions from the general public, have got reactions from political parties, have got reactions from all those who are interested in making sure that we have a credible elections. Now, let me take a point that my brother Jenapo made with regards to we haven't finished that journey, and it's on the day of the elections that we would realize whether the Electoral Commission has done its job or is capable of running elections or not. Look, if you look at the history of elections in this country, the Electoral Commission has been able to run elections since '92. We have not gone to war over it. We have not fought ourselves over it. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they would be able to run the elections come 2016. Any discrepancy, as we saw in 2012, comes from the political parties who are unsatisfied with an election result. But so far as the Electoral Commission has the capability to run it, let's give them that a chance. Look, we have progressed from black and white pictures, from all the different types of electoral implements that we need to a certain point now. And we are gradually building, and I'm sure come 2020, come 2024, come 2028, elections will be much, much better, much, much tighter. The electorate would understand the processes of elections as we go forward. So, for me, let's give the Electoral Commission the benefit of the doubt that 2016 is going to happen. 2016 will happen without any infractions. And if infractions do help, the courts have proven to us that they are able and capable to handle any election issues that come up.
Very well.
If you don't mind.
Quickly, and then I take the
Two things.
messages from viewers.
Number
and
one,
listeners.
Openi says that it's good that this case went to court, and at least, if for nothing at all, it's re-informed the Electoral Commission to know that they are not an island in themselves. Absolutely. And I find that unfortunate. Unfortunate in the sense that you want to tell me that the Electoral Commission, not until now, did not know that they were not an island on themselves? Seriously. No, let me finish. Not until now. The Electoral Commission should have known. Long time.
No, but if I got Mr. Johnson
What
correct,
he's saying-
I think what he
yes.
said was this whole conversation,
Yes.
not necessarily the going to
No,
court.
whatever the conversation or whatever it is. No, lawyer. The fact of the matter is that if you are an electoral commissioner, you should know that there's something called checks and balances in this country. It's fundamental. We learn it at JHS.
Yes,
Let me give you an
It's
example.
simple.
Let me give you an example. 2012.
Yes.
I was in the strong room, and after the elections, I saw the MPP troop into the Electoral Commission. So I followed, and I was the only independent political party in the room that day.
What do you mean by independent?
In terms of, I was the only other political party in the room. Well,
It's not
okay, all right.
independent party.
Okay, all right, okay. When I say independent, I mean that
Yes.
I wasn't an MPP person. I was a different political party. Now I saw the demeanor of the MPP there. They actually wanted a conversation with the Electoral Commissioner then. You could see that they were pleading to be heard that evening. But when the Electoral Commission then, took their processes in terms of what they brought, they gave an hour to look at it and came back. The posture of the Electoral Commissioner then threw everything into disarray. If you don't understand, go to court. They didn't give them that chance to say that, okay, you've come, let's set a day, let's sit, let's discuss. And that was the beginning of the process that we went through in 2012. So, the action of the Electoral Commission then made it look as if we are the Electoral Commission. Whatever we do, we are an island upon ourselves.
In as much as I agree with you, what I'm saying is very simple.
The EC should have known that it is
The Electoral
not.
Commission as an institution should have known and should know that they are not an island in themselves. That reorientation should not.
Well, the people have shown them that they are not.
Yes, let him learn and then yes, I bring in the messages.
You see this point about we've had elections before and before and before. The reality on the ground is that 1992 is not 2016. The dynamics of 1992.
That is why I
is
brought
Very well,
different
yes.
from
That's why I brought the
Let's
progression.
bring
How
in
can
the
you
viewers
in
and
today's
listeners,
Ghana
please.
say that you are moving an election. You are extending it because of biometric verification. It won't happen.
Thank you very much. Let's bring in the views of the cherished viewers and listeners, please. Yes. So let me take this message. This is Shaibu from Tamal. He says, "Good morning, Abna. The EC has come out better and better than before." Kofi in Techiman says the EC is trying to explore all avenues to rig the election in favor of the incumbent party, but Ghanaians are vigilant now. Another one is saying, "Good morning, Abna. I think the EC has done well for taking the issue to the Supreme Court, and now we have finality to the whole issues. We should stop criticizing the EC boss and let her do her job. We should trust the commission a bit so that we will have a credible election this year." Hi, Abna. I don't think the EC has come out better because what took us to court was basic law interpretation. The legal team of the EC should be ashamed of themselves and resign. This is Papanasco he says, Motown. Another one is saying the EC has come out bruised and crushed. Brighton Takrade says, "Good morning, Abna. Did I hear some of your guests say EC came out better? How can the EC come out better when it is the first time we have had the EC go to court the more in the history of this country? Truth be told, Malam Charlotte has failed and should have resigned by now." Patrick Ntema is saying that, "Good morning, the NPP will forever remain in opposition. See how the NPP man is talking." This is Patrick from Tema. Another one is saying, "Mr. Charlotte says should be very cautious of the things she says and does. Whatever her aim is, she should be very careful. The future of this nation depends on her. Remember that everyone will die one day," but I can't continue with the rest of your message, unfortunately. Ibrahim from Cape Coast says, "It has been a trend that if things don't go in favor of a party, they blame the EC. If CPP has to go to court, then EC also has I don't think it's CPP because the CPP hasn't gone to court yet. So it's some other party. If that party has to go to court, then the EC also has a right to appeal." This is what you are saying. I'm sure it's a PPS. Another one is saying the EC should compromise on all obstacles that may block this year's election and focus on all possible means to make this election free and fair so that we have a peaceful election before, during, and after. Ibrahim Nwa is saying this. Again, we'll put the brakes on the messages and we'll move on to...
There's something on the EC lawyers. I want to state clearly and categorically that Tadiosori is one of the best legal brains in this country.
Yes.
Nana
Is it sometimes you have a bad
legal
case?
prowess that the MPP are touting has lost a case before. Every lawyer has lost a case.
Depending
so
on
the fact that they have lost
have.
this case, Tadiosori is one of the best lawyers this country has produced.
Wait, that's the first submission. Let's...
No, there's
please, we need to move on. No, but that's fine. Please, no.
But you know people have talked
No,
about...
he is making a point. We are moving on.
Sacking. You hear people
Mr.
Maniba,
No, you've made your point. Prof, briefly, and then we move on to some other issue. No, Emmanuel, please allow Prof.
You are the most intolerant person.
No. Mr. Maniba, please, and Emmanuel, please. Prof has the floor. Gentlemen, please, Prof has the floor.
I think I'm coming back to my original point.
Okay.
It's rather unfortunate that the EC, what it does, what it doesn't do, is the issue. Where the EC is the means to an end. We tend to lose sight of the end. That's the first point. The next point I want to make, which is very important, I think this is looking like a boxing game. In other words, we are going 12 rounds. We probably are now in the 6th round. Sometimes the EC wins, this guy wins. We are not done yet. We are not done yet.
let's not say that we are saying that. I think this continues. Okay, now some people say the least have lost 1 or 2 rounds. These other guys are going to show up. Until the election is over, the new president comes in. I think we are still going to continue.
Very
the
well.
media.
And perhaps we even continue from there. Great. So we're moving on to some other issue related to what happened this week with the EC. Balloting for presidential, the positions on the presidential ballot. Quickly. Okay, let me start. Yes, I'll start from you, Emmanuel. Yes, how are you doing with these positions in terms of your campaign? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know that with the way our politics is, you usually would, have some interesting outcomes from these positions you have to find yourself on the ballot. And with what Ahmed, just put across, I know he's referring to us. We have some of our people coming up with high five. Some have gone on with the
5th president of the 4th Republic.
Absolutely, the religious, aspect of it, where they are talking about the Bible spelled with 5 letters, the Quran with 5 letters, and then, Nanado's name with 5 letters, and all that. I mean, this doesn't really take a bigger role in our campaigning. We have a message which we are putting out, across the length and breadth of the country, and we know the Ghanaian people are believing in what it is we are putting out before them.
Sure.
But because this has over the years been part of the whole game, you remember the ASEO in 2000,
I mean, it's part of your messaging and all.
Yes, and then I think beyond, after ASEO, we had Esuro as well, where we said that you're from the Abasuro.
Very well. Quickly to Mr. Maliba.
So I think that
Mr. Maliba,
it's good that we are on the
John 3:16. How's that working?
No, but you see, for us, long before we got our position in the ballot, we had come out with this slogan. Because John 3:16, we had looked at, you were not in the country. We had looked at,
where was that?
Rollins, Atamels, and then Mahama. So long before the position that we have gotten, we have talked about John 3:16, and we're even using it. So when we balloted for the parliamentary, and we got 3, we said, Oyiwa, it has come to pass. Then you know that in this election, in this balloting for the presidential, our general secretary went there with a position that, look, why do we go through these motions again? Why don't we just maintain what we did for the parliamentary? They kicked against it. Normally for them, everything will be kicked against.
Could that have been? Because there were more... Let me say, there were more... There were more candidates on the parliament. No, Emmanuel, please. Emmanuel, just a minute.
You don't know these things. You don't know these things. You are begging.
But Mr. Maliba, why do you keep on saying he doesn't know?
He doesn't know these things.
What do you mean he doesn't know?
Martin kicked against it.
What is it that I don't know?
Very well.
This matter that Martin kicked against.
Sure.
You don't know.
What is the essence of it in this whole discussion?
You balloted, you went...
You tell me how to submit my submissions?
Please allow, yes.
So when he kicked against it, and I'm trying to tell you the good omen as usual, when the balloting came, our general secretary picked again, it was 3, confirming what he wanted. That is the 3rd position. So we look at all these things, that these things are falling in place. They are falling in place, the chips are falling in place because Mahama has been favored as John 3:16.
Very well. Mr. Johnson, what is the CPP saying about number 1? What are you doing?
It's a ballot paper, isn't it? It's a ballot paper. Yes,
the first president, right?
I'm not sure about the parliamentary.
Parliamentary GCPP.
So yes, please allow Mr. Jantua to make his speech.
But we were the party that brought independence.
First, yes, so number 1, that's...
So if we're number 1, it's fair enough. We will use it to campaign, and we will use it to make a point. See, the last election, we were very close to GCPP, and it confused a lot of the electorate. Because I know the last election...
So positions on the ballot
GCPP
does matter.
hardly campaigned, but they got more votes than we did. And so, for us, it's fine. We would use it to the best of our ability to campaign.
But how do you know that it's because GCPP didn't campaign? That's why.
Well, people got confused.
Maybe they did something.
People got confused with the acronyms.
Okay.
CPP, GCPP, and even on some of the ballot sheets, there were cross thumbprint between the two.
Okay.
So, you know,
Sure.
it's fine. For me, it's just a ballot paper. The issue is in the content.
Right.
However, the American elections has shown us that content is neither here nor there where the electorate are concerned.
Great.
But I hope with this, we would concentrate on the content and vote the right party into power.
Okay. I think we can move on now to the second topic for today. Are you contesting? Are you on? I was just taking it. But anyways, exactly. Let's carry on. No. We need to. I'm working with time here. It's almost 9. We need to move on.
With regards to this John 3:16, you know, they've forgotten that the book of John has three books. 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, and the 3rd John has one chapter.
Very well.
We are also telling them that the one chapter indicates that one term it's finished. And again, you have NDP next to them. The former first lady, former first vice chairman, whose face is next to the president. Their colors the same. We know
Well,
this as
as
Kwame has said.
we live
will
to see.
We will see what will happen when
Exactly.
it comes about good omen.
Great.
See,
So we are
I'm-
moving
let-
on.
Let me make a quick submission. I think there's one thing that we seem not to have alluded our minds to when it comes to the
ballot paper.
We are talking of how many candidates? 7?
7.
The last time they were how many?
8.
8. The last time they were 8. If you look at the last time, the number of spoilt ballots, in fact, according to the data, it's supposed to be number 3.
Number 3,
Yeah.
yeah.
Number 3. So we are about 3 weeks to it.
Number 3 is where most of the...
No, I mean the number, the figure of spoiled
3%.
ballots.
Yeah, that's what you're
It's
saying.
no, the
No, number 3 in terms
it's
of...
more than
the party
that came third.
Oh, yeah.
Check the data.
Yeah.
You understand? The point that I'm trying to make here is that most people, or we have this because most people were not well educated in terms of how to cast the ballot. And today, we have just about 2 to 3 weeks to go to elections. We have these individuals. What is being done in terms of voter education?
Exactly. Which is
Somebody made mention of NDP and NDC. I don't think it is right for me to want to vote for NDC, then I'll be voting for NDP. No, that means my franchise had been what? Had been misused. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not about, I think, look, I believe in a system whereby the good people of this country choose a leader that they want. It shouldn't be by default. Do you get what I'm saying? It shouldn't be by default. So I think the political parties have an important job to do.
Responsibility to
Educating
educate.
what? Their supporters. Instead of, being so obsessed with this high five, John 3:16 and all those.
But it's all trying to get them to know. But let me, Mr. Madiba, let me take
The EC has decided that they will take in the borders
the borderlines, yeah.
of the various
Sure.
between the two.
No, it's
So
a
if
good-
it
it's a good-
brings
it's a
and
good distance.
goes, it will not
Agreed.
fall onto the other one.
Agreed.
Very well.
But I
Please,
think
let me
still have
allow
to.
Prof to come in on this. Prof, your last words on this issue, and then we move on to number 2, topic for the day.
Well,
Oh, yeah, number 2 or number 3. That's number 3.
Now, ballots came under that. But anyways,
Well,
please.
like everything else, the political parties will make a big deal of it. I don't know if this time one party is in number so and so. Next, you will make a story out of it. The next time,
There's always a
yeah.
narrative.
So let them
Yeah,
have
it's just
their
no,
feel.
Emmanuel, we are
That's
moving
no
on.
problem.
The ballot paper issue, you know, this ballot issue, ballot thing. There's one thing that I think the EC needs to educate its officials seriously. I have been at the polling station in my constituency in Garu before, and I can give the name of the polling station where a thumbprint was put on the candidate's face, and other contesting, agents were like, "This is a spoiled ballot," and it became a contentious issue. So I think that we need to come out. If the thing is not on the box, and the person decides that I'm putting it on either the symbol or the face, I think it should be considered. These things, if we want to take the ballot papers which turn out to be spoiled ballot and look into it, we will get to realize that a chunk of it is just because we decide to hold on to things that makes it quite difficult for.
Emmanuel.
Well, it all boils down to education.
What
And
does
please,
the law say?
please,
Yes, what is the
put it in the box.
I mean,
Put it in the box, and that's what it is. So it's
What
all
does the law
about
say?
the
What
education.
does it say?
In the box, that's what it is. So all about voter education, and then you get
Go and
your
educate
vote
your
as it is.
people
So
and
please,
stop
we are
doing
moving
high
on. We are moving on to other issues, and
Stop doing R5.
Doc and Emmanuel, please. We're moving on to. We're going on to. A shocker of an election outcome, which is the U.S. elections. Last week we were talking about it, but we now have the outcomes, and we're going to look at that. I mean, first question I'm asking is, Prof, did you see a Trump victory coming?
That's a tough question. No, I saw his victory coming in the primaries. Because I read his book. I've got myself educated about this guy very seriously. I did the same thing for Obama before he became president. So I read a lot of his writings. I saw his victory for the primary, but I wasn't sure about the presidency. But at some time, it became a bit jittery. But when it finally came through, I'm not very surprised about the result. That's what I can say about that now.
Very well. Yeah. Doc, did you see it coming? Were you shocked as I was?
No, I'd never. I think we discussed this issue here last week. I was here with Amaliba and Nana Fridu, and I think someone else. And I did indicate that, look, for me, if you look at what happened right from the scratch when Trump entered the race, I thought he was somebody who could win the election. But I got to a point, I gave up on him because of one thing, a statement that was made by Barack Obama, that the man is not fit to be president of the United States. And I thought that that statement was a huge indictment on the candidacy of Trump. Indeed, the nights that they were declaring the results, I stayed throughout the whole night, from the start till the end. I was surprised. And I think everybody who more or less followed the election should be surprised, because how did I get to know about what was going on? Through the media. Through the media. I mean, almost every poll upon poll made it clear that Trump was losing. So when it came, I think even the Trump campaign, if you were someone who observed it, where was he supposed to give his speech? In a ballroom. In a ballroom. Where was Hillary supposed to give her speech?
Yeah.
Outside. In a huge place. So even the Trump people were surprised. But I think at the end of the day, I don't know how we want us to look at this issue, but it tells you a whole lot. It tells you a whole lot. What are the ramifications for us as a people? There are so many speculations regarding how Trump won, and interestingly, even as of now, there haven't been any pinpointed empirical reference to what factors led to his winning.
Oh, no, but seriously, the Trump phenomenon will set anthropologists.
It will take a long time.
So many specialists a long time to understand.
Yeah, because it's always easy to do this, because normally Americans, when they vote, they have something they call the exit poll, where people are asked. Before they went into the election, the polling was hinged on two things. One, honesty, and two, experience. Hillary Clinton was always winning the experience. And Trump was always winning the honesty, even though he said it as it is, but he still was what? Winning the honesty. And today, if Trump has won, then it tells me that if you extrapolate, Trump won because what? People saw him to be honest. And Hillary was somebody that they thought that was not what? Was not honest. At the end of the day, look, in Ghana today as we speak, a lot of people are making huge capital out of it. In fact, the presidential candidate of the NPP made reference to it. When he met, is it Guta? Okay. Guta, I listened to it. And legitimately so, why wouldn't he make reference to it? He should make reference to it because, look, before they went for the election, I sat here and I made reference to the point that, look, since 1992, when we started our fourth Republican dispensation, when Rawlings was president, but Clinton, a Democrat, was president. They were both president for 8 years. Didn't I make that reference? No, it's a fact.
Yeah, last week you did.
No, yeah. I did. I said when Rawlings was president, Bill was president for 8 years. Indeed, Clinton came to Ghana and he wore a suit and wore a cloth. In 2000, when Kufuor became president, Bush Jr. became president for 8 years. Right? In 2008, Obama became president. Atamels became what? President. Today, Trump is president. I don't know. I don't know. And it doesn't necessarily mean, because the dynamics of the United States are totally different from what is happening in Ghana. Today, if you ask me, I will say that the Trump victory has energized the NPP base. Indeed, yesterday, I was at a place when a young man that I didn't even know that he's a politician, some guy, Francis, he was filling form. I mean, NPP. I said, what is this for? He said he's registering people. I said, registering people for what? He said, oh, so that they will know that. I said, then they will get what? He couldn't explain, but he's energized. As to whether that will transmit into votes is a different thing.
We'll wait to
but
see.
I strongly believe that At the end of the day, Ghana, we have our unique circumstances, we have our unique situations, we have our unique candidates, you know, and those candidates have an enormous responsibility to convince the electorate why they should be voted for.
Great. But another party that perhaps has also been energized by this Trump victory is the PPP, because listening to Dr.
What has made them
he's saying that
energized?
Trump was a choice against the establishment. So PPP is coming against
Is PPP
NPP,
not part of the
NDC,
establishment?
which is deemed to be the establishment in Ghana, because that's what we keep on talking about. In any case, even if you add the CPP and all, those have been there longer. And, you know, so he is also coming with that argument, talking about the underdog and everything.
Quickly, if there was anybody who was against the establishment in the United States, then it's Gary Johnson.
Ah, well, but he wasn't on.
No, he was on the ballot.
Right.
Check, he was on the ballot. Gary Johnson, that's a libertarian. He was on the ballot. I think, look, as I said.
But you know, Trump was coming as an outsider and everything, so
But
yes, clearly.
But PPP,
let me,
Doom is not an outsider. He's a deep inside.
well, that's his opinion. He says he's coming up against the establishment.
Mr.
Jantua, did you see this coming? And what do you make of the polls that prior to the election, every poll was pretty much declaring Hillary as, you know, the choice? The polls obviously got it wrong. What could have accounted for that?
When you look at Brexit and you look at the polls of the American elections, it's very, very difficult to believe polls. Because I think one thing the polls didn't do in the American election, they did not go into the rural parts of America where the white supremacy vote was high. They did not do that. And they all had this idea that because Trump was an outsider, the established Hillary Clinton would be the one to go forward. Now, the whole process for me, it looked as if Clinton was ahead. Where I then began to think there could be a change was when the second FBI emails came out.
Right.
Because if you realize, Trump used those emails to attack Hillary all through his campaign.
Left, right, center.
And make her look someone who was dishonest, someone who felt she was an island upon herself. And he asked the question, you have been in the establishment for the last 30 years. What have you achieved? The one thing Clinton didn't do was to appeal to the ordinary voters' problems, one. They also didn't use Obama's victories and successes during his 8 years to campaign. So I hardly heard Clinton talk about what Obama had done throughout his 8 years. And so Trump's victory wasn't hinged on what or what not Obama didn't do, but was actually hinged on whether Clinton was capable of running, of being president of America because of some of the things she'd done during her time in the establishment.
But speaking about the Obama legacy too, you know, there's this other side of it which has to do with the African American constituents who clearly didn't turn out to vote massively like they did for Obama, because they also have some misgivings about the Obama legacy, thinking that, well, you didn't do anything for us. So do you think that, assuming you're saying that she didn't campaign on that legacy well enough, but given this context and the fact that African American constituency is quite huge when it comes to the Democratic Party, would a campaign on Obama's legacy, if indeed you're saying like she didn't, assuming if she did, would that have made any difference at all?
It would have depended on the way she actually articulated it, how she had wanted to bring it forward. And yes, the Democratic Party has always had the votes of blacks, but the blacks themselves were a bit disoriented with how Obama, a black president, had handled certain things. So A good example was the young black American who was brutalized by the police. What did Obama's administration do about that? But be mindful
and many others.
Yes, be mindful that 46% of eligible voters didn't vote at this election, especially the young college graduates, those who were in universities and were in colleges. And the Democratic Party underestimated the strength of the white supremacy voters. And sad that most of these people who, and one reason why the pollsters got it wrong, most of these people who were looking at the speeches and the utterances of Trump, and it resonated with them, actually couldn't tell their next door neighbor that they were voting for Trump.
Yes, Trump had been demonized to the extent that you wouldn't want to associate yourself with him.
But that is wrong. That is wrong. And so, really and truly, my main disturbing thing for me is the fact that when you turn on to any international radio station, the BBCs of this world and the German stations of this world, the type of discussions that have been going on as to what a Trump presidency, how that will reflect on their economies. I haven't heard any African head of state say Trump is now the elected president of America. How do we see that affecting us?
Yes, we'll get to that.
I haven't heard the AU talk about it. I haven't heard ECOWAS talk about it. I haven't heard even the individual presidents in West Africa talk about it. And so, in all the discussions, Africa seems to be taken out. The Germans are talking about it. The British are talking about it. Actually, there was
Have we been taken out, or we haven't done it? Because this is a congratulatory message you're sending. You don't need anybody perhaps to... Typically, heads of states around the world would send such messages.
Abna, have you listened to the BBC throughout this week? The BBC throughout this week has interviewed the Germans, interviewed the Swiss,
The French.
interviewed the French, interviewed anybody in Europe as to how a Trump presidency would
The
affect
effects of
them.
it, yeah.
What about
But no,
Africa?
Africa, yeah.
Is it because when America sneezes,
yes,
we catch
the
a
rest of
cold?
the world, yeah.
Is it because the financial might of America would not allow us to talk? And look, just yesterday, I heard on the radio that Germany was putting together a Marshall Plan for Africa to stop migrants from, coming across into the Mediterranean. They were trying to get some monies together so that, like World War II, where there was a Marshall Plan to get America back and get Europe back, they're doing a similar thing now for Africa. And our heads of state are quiet. Why? Because they're going to get money?
We don't matter. That's what it is.
Yes, but if we should make ourselves matter.
And that's what I was saying, yeah.
We should make ourselves matter. Because nearly 60% of the world's natural resources are in Africa. We have power. What are we doing about it? Why are we quiet? I would even expect it, and even I would give to the MPP for their flag bearer to even say something about it, even relate himself to it. Because I haven't heard my president talk about it.
But the president has indeed sent.
I'm not talking about congratulations. Go deeper than congratulations. Tell us how you see a Trump presidency affecting Ghana. Look, Trump has been talking about free trade. It's an issue that we can also take up and talk about.
This is not now. It's not now.
So why are the others talking about it now?
Israel.
Well, it's all about the power play within the Community of Nations.
Israel, Iraq,
The Chinese were the first
Chinese.
to speak.
And in fact, when you look at Trump's discussions where China is concerned, he's only looking at the economic side of China. He's not looking at the geopolitical side of China. So if he's able to strike a deal on the economic side with China, China now has the right to invade Taiwan. They won't say anything. The geopolitical side is out of the question. What are we saying about that as Africa? We need to have a voice. We need to have, our heads of state talking on behalf of Africa. But they are quiet. Yes. They're going to wait for him to get into office first. He's now selecting his cabinet. Talk to the process so that when he's selecting, he knows that Africa too matters.
Very well. We started the conversation around the Trump victory, that shocker which is still making waves around the world. I'll turn to Mr. Amaliba now for your take on this. I think just before the break, issues about how Africa will be affected by this came in and all of that. So initially, your general impressions about Trump's
Was I
victory,
shocked?
and then, yes.
Was I shocked? Even those who voted in America are shocked. That's why they are outside on the streets. They are still demonstrating. Those who did the voting. You know, the EIU also came out with some prediction.
Who are the EIU?
The Economic Intelligence Unit came out with some prediction and indicated that Nana Akufo-Addo was going to win in Ghana and Clinton would win in the US. So by extrapolating what has happened in the US, is it to say that there's going to be...
Mr. Amaliba, you know the EI, is it EIU? Yes, they've also had...
The EIU is also going to lose
polls
here.
in previous election years.
Their polls is going to be fatal here. So, but clearly, the two systems are not the same. I've heard people say that, oh, there has been a trend. If there's a Democrat in the White House, then in Ghana there's an NDC government. If there's a Republican government, then there's an NPP government. These trends are just mere coincidence because the systems, even the electoral systems, are even different. If the U.S. election had taken place in Ghana, Clinton would have been the president. Popular vote.
Because she got the popular vote,
She would have been the president. So it would have been John Mahama. But I don't want it to be like that. I don't want it to be like that. The elections will be fought on the basis of what the NDC has done for the people of this country. That is the bottom line. It's going to be a referendum on the John Mahama administration. And we are out there campaigning on the strength of the NDC party and what we have done for the people of this country. If there was a trend, that trend came to an end with the demise of Professor Mills. That trend came to an end because in this election, we have a sitting president. In the US election, there's no sitting president. And the US...
I think you made a statement earlier, which is that the two systems are different.
The US...
So
no,
these extrapolations and all.
I have come here to make these submissions, so you can't...
I'm just using your words that you said earlier, that's all.
So the point is that you see, you've made me lose my thoughts. What's that?
Oh my God.
What is that?
You said the trend ended with the death of the late.
Yes, the US people did not vote against a certain president. So for me, and you see, if I want to add, Donald Trump did not sack his party chairman, did not sack his party secretary, did not sack his first vice chairman before becoming president. So the dynamics, and I'm showing you the dynamics, the differences.
He changed the number of campaign managers, didn't he?
I'm saying that your campaign manager does not have the same clout like your party chairman. So the dynamics are not the same. And I'm pointing to you how the system there is different and you cannot extrapolate what has happened there to this place. So based on that, I think that 7th December is the real pulse, and then 7th December, we shall see what the people of this country will say.
Very well. Emmanuel, so, Mr. Amaliba touched on something which I wanted us to talk about. Definitely you give your impressions, your general thoughts, but also looking at what he talked about, the popular votes as against the electoral college system, which really has led to these protests, because the majority of the people feel this is not our choice. We didn't vote, because clearly the popular vote is saying something else. But the electoral college votes are also saying something else, which is very decisive. 290 against 228. your general thoughts, and then let's look at the utility of the electoral college system within a democracy, which pretty much is that the majority of the people should elect government.
Let me take it from the popular vote. I think that those who are demonstrating have a right, and looking at what went to this whole thing, I don't begrudge them for demonstrating, because I'm one person who also had a shock when Trump won the election. It had a telling effect on me, and I mean, those who are close to me understand why this is so. But having said this, they can demonstrate, you know, for days, weeks, and whatever. It's not going to change anything. And this is not the first time we are seeing this kind of a situation. In 2000, we saw that happen with Al Gore and George W. Bush, when Al Gore had the popular votes, and then George Bush made the electoral college. That is the system they've lived with for centuries, not decades, centuries. And until it is changed, and I doubt if it's going to happen, they would continue to have this situation. You know, it's a painful one in a way, to see, you know, the majority vote for you, and yet you can ascend to the presidency and become the president of the United States. But moving away from that, it is quite interesting when you listen to the assertion Amaluba put in there. And for me, whether he said that or not, my take on this whole issue, relating the Trump victory to that of our election, which is 24 days ahead of us, is this. I think about 3-4 days ago, we were given a love letter from the president.
A what?
A love letter.
Love.
In quotes, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
Love letter.
No, I don't.
Let him land will properly understand. Yes,
from
love
the
letter
president,
saying what?
who is the presidential candidate of the ruling party, Amaluba's candidate. And if you read that letter, which I have on my phone, you will realize that he made serious emphasis on the fact that polls in Ghana, research findings in Ghana, has put him at a point where he is reassuring the rank and file of his party that he is won already. He didn't say he would win. He says he's already won the election. And when he said that, I was like, it hit me a bit, because he's one person who has been apprehensive. This is my way of looking at it. Apprehensive when it comes to his main contender. And he's gone ahead to even accuse him of carrying himself as president-elect. And I have questioned it on other platforms, what Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has done to make it look as if he's carrying himself as president. I have made declarations on other platforms with friends, with groups, and I'm making that declaration here again. Not just because I'm trying to relate it to my submission, but that from now onwards, as a practicing politician, there is no way any day I would believe any polls coming from wherever it is. Because this is a democracy that has a better way of doing polls, that when you hear of their poll results, you can't doubt it. And the things that happened, let's leave the popular votes where people would want to put their argument. If you take it from the polls, they didn't talk about popular votes. I followed the American election keenly. On the day of election, like Ahmed said, I was sitting and watching, and the place that hit me was Florida. When it kept on going, Hillary, Trump, and then when you had CNN and John King coming up with the maps and showing us the counties that each of them had their strengths on, and then just opposing it to what even happened in 2012 with regards to Obama and Romney. When it got to the South Beach area, the Miami area, South Beach County area, we were told by CNN, and at least I have a fair, understanding of the composition in that part of the United States. I've been there a couple of times, and I know that it is made up of blacks, largely Caribbeans, and then Latinos. There are some parts of Miami you go, and if you don't have someone to help you out, you'll be stranded speaking English. It is all Latinos, especially these Cubans. They call them Cubans in that area. You will have to get someone to help you out, else you will be stuck with people speaking just Spanish to you. And knowing that these are minorities who had taken a position to vote against Trump, when they were making that projection, having, an understanding of that situation, I was chatting with friends and I was giving them the
thought it
demographics
would
of
be
the
good.
yeah, the demographics of the place, and I was like, that is what is going to hit Trump out. And they talked about how Barack went through narrowly. He got 50 and Romney 49. And lo and behold, that county came and then changed the whole thing. So when I sat in there, I was like, wow. And the other place that came and then hit that whole results out was Pennsylvania. Look, if I was asked to put a bet on any state out of the 50 states in the United States of America, which would have gone for Hillary, there is no way I would have left Pennsylvania out.
Pennsylvania is a blue state. In the
It
first
is.
So it wasn't even contentious.
Absolutely. But look at what happened.
Turned red.
It turned red. And again, the other aspect of the polls, talking about white elite women, that is college, you know, their polls were done in such a way that they didn't just come out and then throw it out, but they break these things down, and then you saw it as very convincing. There was nothing to tell you that facts were not from, I mean, were not coming out of these polls. White college women,
Educated, yeah.
the polls indicated about 70% plus were going for Hillary. And it turned out that she didn't even get up to 40% of the votes from that class.
So that 36% white women and 43%
That's what
voted
she
for
didn't get
Clinton,
40%.
52 for Trump.
You know, so if you take these things from a territory when they say they are doing polls, you have no doubt. I have decided that from now onwards, whether it is Ghana, South Africa, United States, Britain, France, look, me, I don't want to depend on polls.
You just wait for the details to come and then the voters will decide.
So if we are getting the president telling us that the polls are pointing to the fact that he's already won, we would wait and see what will happen on the 7th of December. Because we know we have a message which is resonating with the people of Ghana. And we have seen our message shake our opponents who just a few months ago said we did not have a message. Amaleba didn't make that point with
Emmanuel,
me on the
please wrap up and let's move on to the other topic. But I'll go to
now it's about we deceiving people. Well, what I know is that our message is resonating with the people of Ghana, and I have no doubt whatsoever. I've been in this game for quite some time.
Great, we'll wait.
And I have no doubt whatsoever that the
December
things that I'm
7th
seeing,
and the outcomes of that.
the things that I'm seeing,
No, Mr. Amaleba, please.
the things that I'm seeing,
Emmanuel, please wrap up for me. Yes.
the things that I'm seeing, we would not depend on any polls. He's talking about EDU, right? Or is it EIU? Whether EIU came out with polls that indicated that our candidate will win or not, we have never made a quote. We've never. And I'm not saying because this has happened. Because we've made it a point. And, I mean, with our own elections here, we made it a point not to depend on polls with regards to the whole thing. And now the American one has come to put me as a person in a situation where I won't.
It's confirmed your conviction very well. Great.
So
thank you. Let's move on.
He has doubts over that polls. I want to tell him that we saw that way before he did.
Great. Prof, to you, you wanted to make some submission, but I want us to, whilst making that briefly, you tie into the fact that it's just been a couple of days after the elections, and we see Trump perhaps to be of a certain posture now. We hear that he said he's likely to maintain some aspects of Obamacare, which earlier when he had said he was going to repeal totally and everything like that. Now, he's not going to repeal at all, apparently. Now, here is someone who campaigned on a certain narrative. He gets in there, seems to be swaying somewhat. How confusing is the situation now? Is he in a fix? If he doesn't deliver, he upsets his base. If he delivers on those quote-unquote ridiculous promises, there's likely to be some, issues with his presidency. How is he to deal with the situation?
Well, Trump, let's not confuse Trump, the candidate, with Trump, the president.
Elect.
Well, no, Mama.
President-elect, yes.
He's going to be president.
Yes, president-elect, just for the facts,
Very good.
There was an American president who stayed for just 31
Well,
days.
let me make my point. Okay? Trump, the candidate, and now Trump, almost the president. Let's not confuse that.
Right.
Trump appealed to a particular constituency. People think Trump is dumb. He's one of the smartest guys around town. He knows exactly what Americans are thinking today. He functioned his campaign in a particular direction where even members of his party think that he's crazy. to be doing those things. Now he prevails. So that is a very, very, very smart guy. That's the first point. He made promises. I will do this, I will build a wall, I will scrap Obama, this thing, I will lock up this thing, Hillary Clinton, when I this thing. He did all those things because it's appealing to a particular constituency. That message have done its job. He won the presidency. Now let's come to reality. Trump never, being a smart guy, never seen himself as implementing everything he said on a campaign trail when he become president. Then if that's what he's thinking, there's not the kind of Trump I've read about. He's a smart guy. Now that he's now become a president, already, he was supposed to meet Obama for 15 minutes, thereabout. He made it for 1.5 hours. A lot of discussion took place. That's Trump now behaving like, even the day he gave his acceptance speech, see the way he was walking. He was walking like a president. That's not the same Trump that we know at the what? On the campaign trail, jumping here and there. He was walking like a president. So Trump have landed. He promises constituencies. They have delivered the goods. Now let's go to reality. Obamacare, he says he's going to maintain 2 key cross of that. He's not going to scrap it. He's going to maintain 2 key scrap of that. He mentioned a lot of things recently. Okay? He changed his decision on the Muslim thing. Even the wall that he's talking about, I don't think Trump is going to build that wall. But this is what is going to happen. Trump just wants 4 years. 4 years to prove that he will deliver on the economies. These other things are all by the way.
But those were
let me land.
Please.
If Trump succeed as a president in the next 4 years to deliver the goods in terms of the jobs, in terms of the economy, bring back American job from China, okay? Who cares about these other promises he's made? He needs 4 years to prove himself. If Trump did not deliver on those things, he's a smart guy. If he didn't deliver on those things, then he will be one-term president. Nobody's going to kick Trump out until the next elections. So he has time to deliver other things. Those other ones are sure for him to get to where you get because he knows his consistency. They are not the blacks, they're not his Hispanics. The people you need to appeal to, he appealed to them and he's got a good job done. So I don't say, now finally, whether Trump have any relevance to Africa, never mind Ghana, I think we are jumping the gun. Trump himself knows few of the things he wants to do, but I don't think he knows the ramification of what he wants to do. Take, for example, Bush. When he first came into power, he was one of the isolationists. He even refused to sign the Kyoto Agreement. But when he ended up his presidency as the most interventionist president on a global scale by starting the war. So I see Trump, all the things he promised, I'm not going to do this trade, I'm going to cut off these guys, I'm going to do that. In the next 2 years, he actually gave us 2 years, I am going to deliver. And to deliver those things, Trump is going to realize that we are in an interconnected world. So I'm not worried very much about whether Trump is going to affect Africa. Because Americans don't think about Africa first. They think about other bigger guys. We'll get the scrumps. If he comes, now look, see what African government are saying. Are they going to cut the aid? Where the Asians are saying, is it going to stop trade? That is the problem. We don't have any bargaining chip.
Well, I'm just struggling to understand how he's going to rule, given, like you're saying, the realization now would essentially make him do certain things different from what he had promised. Because he realizes that you can't do certain things.
No, he'll keep his big promises. He will keep his big promises.
But nonetheless, Mr. Johnson, yes.
However,
Please, we need to move on, so snappy.
Yes. However, he shouldn't forget that the things he wants to do within America can have an effect internationally. Yeah. So, for instance, this thing about climate change, the fact that he says climate change is a hoax, it affects us directly. Even the oil price. He says he's going to flood the world with oil. It has a huge implication. Yes, he's talking about nuclear. That can have a huge implication on the oil price. Where do we stand on these things? You see, somebody like Obama, when he was coming into office, he understood the geopolitics of the world. He understood what America needed. It looks as if Trump understands what America needs, but does not understand what the world needs.
Because he's looking in.
He's
and
looking
that's the
in.
issue. Yes.
And America is a kind of continent that can't just look in, because just outside their border is the whole South America, which is a whole continent and a whole economy on its own. So he can't come and stand on the platform and say the things he says and mitigates it by saying, I want to bring everything together, everybody together. It's not possible. To be an American president, you have to have the stature of understanding world politics.
Very well. Thank you. Mr.
But you
Maliban.
see, if what Prof is saying, and I agree with him, that there's reality check on him, I would say that Trump has engaged in deception.
That's the
Yes.
Because people believe that those who voted for him were looking for a war.
Yes.
And now
They were
you're
looking for a war.
Yes.
Those who voted for him wanted blacks to come home.
Exactly.
So what is he doing to the Americans?
Exactly. So that's the point. That's why I'm saying he's in
So
a
he'll pay the
fix.
price,
If he does this, yes. Lastly, Doc, and then we move on. Briefly, and then we move on to hot issues in Ghana.
It's an individual who won an election, but being a president is an institution. He cannot work.
That's where the reality check comes in.
He cannot work as an isolated person. Let me speak briefly on this popular vote thing, because it looks like it's becoming an issue. The reality on the ground is that if you take the United States, it's a federal state. You take a state like California, one of the states that has the biggest population. So if Hillary wins California, what it means is that relative to a state like West Virginia, Clinton picks a lot of what? A lot of, what do they call it? Popular vote. But you are rewarded if you win a big state. California has 55 electoral colleges. If you go to West Virginia, you have 4. You understand what I'm saying? If you go to Texas, you have 38. You go to Maine, you have 3. So the reality on the ground is that by the system as it operates in America, Trump had a landslide. There's no debate about it. The second thing, Abna, very quickly, let me land on this. You see, I think this particular issue that is going on with... You say?
Let me make my point.
What is it? Is it French?
Please carry on.
It's not proper.
No, if you say it's not proper English. No, let me...
It's my point. We are teaching people. Let me make my point.
Okay. Point well made.
Noted.
Yes.
No, noted. It's not taken. Noted. Very quickly, Abna. The point is this. In a situation, right, whereby you have a presidential candidate who says, I'll do A, B, C, D, I just hope and pray that he fulfills the promises he made. If not, it's going to have dire consequences. It's going to have dire consequences on us as a people, even in Ghana, especially in an electionary season where politicians are saying they will do A, B, C, D. Because if in a situation like the US, this guy said you do A, B, C, D, and even he's renegating on it, then why would I take a politician serious in Ghana when he's promising me that he's going to do this and that and that?
But which already happened.
And what is interesting is that have you realized that? Have you realized that even though the NDC and the NPP tend to associate themselves with the Democrat and the Republican, interestingly, by their geographical strength, it's reverse. The NDC as a political party in Ghana is very strong when it comes to rural areas. When you go to the Republicans, look at Trump. Rural areas. You understand what I'm saying? If you go to the Democrats are what? Urban areas. But when it comes to Ghana, the NPP is what? So what I'm trying to say is that, look, you can get some bragging rights from this thing. But the reality is that we are totally different.
Very well. Let me take some messages and then we will move on to our last topic for the day. Good morning, Abna. The EC has decided to... Okay, no, not this one. We should be very careful about how we talk against the EC boss. She is doing a good job for Mother Ghana. How can one form be endorsed by a different political party? TV3 continue to lead in everything. This is from Elkanah Frederick Aite inside Pokwase, Accra. This one says, hi, my name is Samuel Tete Jr. I'm talking to you from Tano, so I watch NewDay every day. It's nice. And it says, all that we need is peace and love in this election. From Idrisu Yakub in Tamale says, the EC in this year's election should buy our, I'm not sure what that is, but said the posture of EC would determine the reaction of the people. I trust the Electoral Commission to do a good job. The NDC is winning the next elections irrespective of where any party is positioned on the ballot paper. The good works of John Mahama is the game changer, coupled with the unity and better organization skills of the NDC. And this is from Al-Haj Mahama in Salia. He says, Al-Haj Mahama Salia. Has the NDC forgotten that the 3rd John in the Bible has only one chapter? Please tell them for me. Another one saying, no matter the position of Nanado on the ballot paper, victory is coming, and let Ghanaians rise and embrace the change that is coming. Hashtag change is coming. Razak from Zebula. AU Farouk in Tamale says, good morning to you, Abna, and your panelists, most especially senior comrade lawyer Amaliba. Yes, the EC has been subjected to all kinds of attacks and name-calling by supporters of various political parties in recent months. If this trend of attacks on the EC continues, the integrity and trust given to the EC will no more be trusted. Left to me alone, Ghanaians should forget about NPP, NDC and vote for a different party. Abdul Malik in Tamale says the EC would have been set to have come out better if their case in court was only meant to seek clarification on the law and not to overturn the High Court ruling. The EC suit only sought to justify their action of disqualifying Dr. Ndum, which it failed woefully. The actions of the EC commissioner cast a lot of doubt as to whether President Mahama took a decision by appointing her. Let me take this last one and then we carry on. It says, the interpretations given by the political parties based on their positions on the ballot paper won't result in votes, but rather they should go out and sell their messages and good policies to the voters. Put a break on that and then get to our last topic for the day. And please, for this topic, let me just say that I want us to take this conversation a notch higher than the commentary that we've had all week long. This is a very important issue about security. And definitely there's this blame game. NPP did this, NPP did that. But we are looking forward. We're looking at dealing with a very particular issue. So I'm putting this out there as the ground rule for this segment. Let's not engage in that. We are looking at how we can deal with our security system or security challenges moving forward. And the first question here is this. I mean, it's a matter of public notoriety that these things, what happened in Odododio, consistently happens. It consistently happens, but yes. Messages, and then we go back to our last topic. This one says, Trump, CPP always gives Ghanaians a good presidential candidate, yet Ghanaians are always blind and fooled by the propaganda of NDC and NPP. It would be good if we denied the NDC and the NPP. And this is Shadrach Zenu in Washington. Trump's focus is to make America great. Let African leaders also focus on making Africa great. And another one is saying, so it says, Madam, the EC has lost some credibility, especially with the new errors introduced to the presidential candidates after the court rulings, who identified the errors in the first place to disqualify the candidates. Indeed, if it were to be elsewhere, the EC chair would have resigned or perhaps been sacked outright. This is Rashid from Wale Wale saying, JM is winning Ghana, is not USA JM. Is work for Ghana. I didn't quite get that. You're doing a great job, TV3. Please tell Mr. Jantra that I like him strongly. He should continue with the good work. This is Albert Tanihu in Sige. And lastly, we have another one here saying, hello, Abna. Please, can you let your guests clear this electoral college and the popular vote system in the USA for us? Also, I think the integrity of the EC was questioned at the first time the Supreme Court ordered to quash the disqualification of the other political parties. They have learned lessons from this, and I believe we shall do better in the election. The one about the clarification on the Electoral College and the general electoral system of America, I believe that has been clarified. Yes, it had been brought up. Great. Quickly, let's move to Odododio. And like I said, I put out that caveat. Please, let's focus on the way forward. How do we deal with politically motivated violence? And we know this has been the tradition. Politically motivated violence seems to go unpunished, and the police seems to be helpless in this situation. How do we move on that? Quickly, Dr. Ahmed Janako.
Well, I don't think the police are helpless in this particular situation. I mean, we had two campaigns or rallies going on simultaneously, maybe not too far away from each other. And if you look at excuse me to say, the caliber of our electorate, some of these things are bound to happen. That is why most times when rallies are being organized, or even public gatherings are done, you need to seek permission from the police. So if, for instance, NPP wants to go on a walk and NDC wants to go on a walk the same day at the same place, the police will tell one to stop. So moving forward, I think we still have some time when it comes to campaigning. The police will have to enforce the law. I don't agree with excuses of people committing crimes and being let off the hook.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
because we don't have the law enforcement agencies.
The whip must be cracked.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that. If you commit a crime, you need to be punished, notwithstanding the fact that it was done under the ambit of what the political party.
Very well, Prof. On this issue, like I said, politically motivated violence seems to go unpunished. So it seems there's no deterrent, rather a reinforcement of such conduct and behavior.
Yeah, certainly for me, those people who are causing a commotion are called the foot soldiers. Foot soldiers always have a general. The general are the aspiring candidates, I mean the MPs. They must be held responsible for the conduct of their followers. Okay? Now, if they say, don't do this, because if you do this, I will be punished, I think a lot of this violence will stop. Because, of course, some people will still go out to be more vigilant or more excited by than the candidate itself. But I think if we start to hold the leaders, if, for example, you say, if you have any commotion in your area, and we find out that your people are the people causing that commotion, we will disqualify you. We will disqualify you. We will punish you. Okay? You can say
Holding someone liable for a criminal act?
No. Let's get this clear. If, remember all these war crimes here and there, committed here and there, not all the soldiers who committed those war crimes are the Hague. It's the leaders. The person who have the fullest or the maximum responsibility. Okay? I don't think some of these guys who are causing the trouble are doing it without the knowledge of the people they are supporting. Even if they are doing it without their knowledge, when we hold the political leaders in the neighborhood, in the areas responsible, if your guys go out of line, whether you know it or you don't know it, we will punish you. I think if you do that, a lot of those violence will come to an end. You don't go blaming the police. Sometimes the police can be overwhelmed. There are a lot of areas that they might watch. Put the responsibilities on the shoulders of the political leaders in the constituency. Your people mess around, you'll be punished.
Very well. So the political leaders should be held to a certain standard also, but those who engage in the criminal act themselves should be subject to the criminal justice system.
Yes. No, I'm not saying that.
And that's where my concern is. And when I talk about the seeming helplessness of the police or inactivity of the police, that's what I'm talking about.
No, that one is easy.
Have there been any arrest in this case, for instance?
That one's easy. There are laws against causing commotion.
Exactly.
Is that correct? If you break the law, it doesn't matter whether you are directed by your political leader or whether you're this thing.
You should be
held responsible. But again, that can be handled under the criminal law or whatever. That is straightforward. If the police not applying that, probably because of the sensitivity. But if you say you put the onus on the political leaders, the MP, the aspiring MPs in the area, I'm pretty sure, because in some cases, they are the people actually, and say, come on, you go and do your boy. Okay? Organize them. I think if you do that, I think the police must prosecute those people who they caught red-handed causing commotion. That one is not debatable. But in terms of preventing it, you can warn the political leaders that if your people cause trouble, and you can trace it to your people, don't think that we are going to let it go. Then, that will be a prevention. I think a lot of things will happen that will give us a lot of peace of mind to do the election and come through it safely.
Very well. Emmanuel, we're talking about the bigger question of security, flashpoints and all, but looking at the Odududu constituency in particular, we hear issues of gunshot wounds, talking about proliferation of arms in the hands of civilians. We know the laws or rules governing these things. How are we to deal with this situation, to curb it, as we inch closer and closer into the elections? This is 24 days away from elections.
Well, I think it's a worrying situation, and I guess you have the same feeling. You know, when we have these types of things happening, And I guess, I mean, I believe over the period we would have made some strides in our democratic process. You see these things become a drawback, you know, in the system. The issue of our security services have been mentioned, and then Doc is talking about the police not being overwhelmed and that kind of, I mean, not being challenged.
Being overwhelmed.
Did he say overwhelmed, or he said not being too challenged or something? the point I wanted to, I mean, the point,
I don't remember.
yeah, the point I want to relate to your submission is this: beyond Odududu, some of these issues have come up, you know, and it's worrying. I mean, there's this, you know, tape making the rounds about a case in Brangafo, where someone is talking about he knowing how to shoot for the last 20 years, you know, and he's been killing and he's ready to kill. When you listen to it, it is.
Emmanuel, I will need to be moving on because we just have 2 minutes. So
it's an issue. And
great. Sorry about that, but time is out. We are running out of time. Mr. Maliba, and then lastly, Mr. Janswa.
My submission is to the youth of this country that your life, because they are the ones being used by the politicians, your lives are more important than somebody becoming an MP or a president. Don't allow yourself to be used to create confusion in this country. Because when you die, they will only bring you a gallon of oil and then they'll give to your family and then a rice bag. That's what they will bring to you.
That's it.
So I think that the youth should begin to shy away from politicians who use them. It doesn't matter which party you are. Your life is more important than somebody becoming a president and somebody becoming a president.
Thank you for that advice.
A parliamentary candidate.
Mr. Janswa,
What
lastly.
happened to football violence in Europe when the authorities now decided to charge football clubs when their fans were violent? It cut down football violence. So
Very well.
unfortunately, not enough time to.
Too right.
expand.
This is all the time we have for today's discussions, and I'd like to say a big thank you to the panelists and thank you to you for making time to watch us and listen to us. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Have yourselves a very good weekend. Bye-bye.